All right, hi there, everyone. Welcome to this post-game live edition of Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. I'm Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV, Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Sal Maiorana, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, is coming to us today from the press box at Highmark Stadium. 31-19 over the New Orleans Saints. The Bills 4-0 for the first time since the 2020 season. And I suppose this game, Sal, is kind of a test. And I don't know, you're mixed sometimes. Are you a glass half full or glass half empty kind of guy?
I think you've known I've been a glass half empty guy for my whole life. So that's where I'm sitting on that spectrum. And this was kind of a glass half empty game. I mean, look, in the end, the better team won. They did what they needed to do to get this thing locked away. But it certainly was, there were plenty of times in this game, Adam, where it was getting that stinky smell of bad, like they were pissing the game away. And they were going to let an inferior team come in here and pull a monumental upset. So, like I said, better team ended up winning the game. And kudos to the Bills for doing that. They didn't fall into that trap of losing a game that they should not have lost.
Well, I mean, among those times that kind of had a smell to it, right? It's 21-19 in the fourth quarter, right? And Josh Allen, reigning MVP, right? It was 16 of 22, 209 yards, a couple of touchdowns, first interception of the season, rushed for 7 times for 45 and a TD. But, the signature play, and there's a couple in this game, but where Allen puts his signature on it is that 3rd and 5, 27-yard gain, right? Then he hits Kincaid on the next play for the touchdown, right? And that kind of changes the complexion of things when the outcome was kind of hanging in the balance there.
Yeah, that was a huge moment of the game. You're right. And what got us to that point, Adam, was if you go back earlier in the fourth quarter, they're 21-16. They're in the same position there. They're trying to kind of salt the game away, and they get up there close to midfield. They had a 2nd and 4 because Cook had the run, 6-yard run. And then, I don't know, Joe Brady goes into a brain lock for whatever reason. And that 3-play sequence, that could have been the turning – well, it was briefly the turning point of the game, and it could have been a colossal disaster if what you just mentioned didn't happen later. But I mean, he takes Cook out and they run Ray Davis for 3. Okay, so now you're 3rd and 1. Once again, Cook is still out. He's got 117 yards rushing. They hadn't stopped him all day. They give the ball to Ty Johnson, who, for crying out loud, I mean, Ty Johnson has a role, and it should be pass protecting on 3rd down, leaking out, catching a pass. He shouldn't be your 3rd and 1 runner, so he gets stuffed, and then they pulled a stupid, cute little inside pass to Khalil Shakir, all 175 pounds of him, with 5 tons of humanity right in the middle of the line. That gets blown up, and they turn the ball over. So that was a bad. And I asked Sean, and you could tell when Sean doesn't want to answer a question because he knows the guy who's asking the question is right. I asked him about where was James Cook on that, and he goes, "Yeah, we'll obviously have to go back and look at it." You think? I mean, the guy hadn't been stopped all day. So the Bills, very fortunate because the Saints went right down, thought they scored a touchdown. Thankfully, instant replay got it right, settled for a field goal, and the Bills were still leading. And then that sequence that you just mentioned, Josh Allen making that huge play that kind of gave you the feeling that, all right, they finally have some control here. And then he threw the dime to Kincaid to put it out of reach. So that was a very, very key sequence of events in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And on that play, I mean, I do think they missed Spencer Brown in this game out with a calf injury, right? Vandermark was in there, and he had tripped sort of on that flip play to Shakir that you referred to. He was tripped up on that play, and that's kind of the big reason the Saints were able to really shut that down. It was more of a freak thing, but there was a significant drop-off, obviously, with Spencer Brown.
Yeah, he got worked. He got worked pretty good in this game. I mean, Allen got sacked on, I think it was back-to-back plays. I think late in the second quarter that happened, and Vandermark, I think, was responsible for both of those. It'll be curious to see when Pro Football Focus puts out their grades tomorrow to see what exactly, again, I don't always take what they say as gold, but it gives you a good base, and we'll see how they charted who had the sacks allowed type of thing. I'm guessing Vandermark's going to get at least 2. Huge drop off. Now, I think we had talked about this, or maybe you did with Bucky before I got interneted out of that conversation the other day. But Spencer Brown, it was probably the smart move to keep him out with the calf injury, because you don't want that to get worse. You want it to get better. And they've got, the Patriots coming in next week. This was a game I think they felt, same thing with Oliver and Milano. I think they felt they could keep those guys out and still beat this team. But, man, there were some plays on offense where Vandermark looked bad. Yeah. And they were almost big, turning point plays too.
All right. You mentioned James Cook. And, let's get into his performance a little bit. 22 carries, 117 yards, average 5.3 yards per carry, a touchdown. 8 straight games with a rushing touchdown, by the way, establishes a new franchise record. So congratulations to him. And he continues to deliver. There weren't the big splash plays from him today necessarily that we've seen, highlight reel type stuff, but kind of running inside and everything. I mean, I thought he ran hard and ran well today, I thought, especially in the second half, as the Bills, I think they had, in terms of the second half, I think 106 yards rushing in the second half in this game.
Yeah, he was consistent all day. You're right. There wasn't the home run play, but he was getting, those 4 and 5 yard gains. He ripped off one, I think he might have had a 10-yarder, maybe a 12-yarder mixed in there too. But there were just, those are the kind of plays I like, Adam, those 4 and 5 yard runs where it keeps you ahead of the sticks. There's a stat, it's called success rate that Pro Football Reference uses, and it's measured by if you get 40% of the yards necessary for a first down on first down, and then you get 60% on second down, and then 100% on third or fourth. Those are called successful plays. And his rate going into this game was like 62% success rate. For those who aren't familiar with these metrics, that's a really good number. Mm-hmm. When you could have on every down have 62% success, no matter what the down is, you're doing your job. And he did that again today. I thought he kept them in front of the sticks pretty much the whole game.
All right. So the line in this game, FanDuel, we had talked about it. FanDuel had it at 15.5, and they weren't alone. I think it was the Bills were favored by as much as 16.5 during the course of the week. They wind up, the line, obviously, it's a 12-point differential in the end in this game. And I think a big part of the reason why had to do with the run defense or lack thereof for portions of this game for the Buffalo Bills. They got outrushed 189 to 165 in this game.
Yeah, which, the 165, you'll take that every week. But the 189, that's poor. And the Bills they came into the game ranked dead last in run defense. Now, that's a little bit skewed, obviously, by the Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson flogging they took in week 1. But they're not a good run defense. And Adam, they haven't been a good run defense for a while, right? When they traditionally have been very good against the pass. It wasn't great. They were kind of mediocre in both last year, but they've always been a pretty good pass defense team. This team has struggled against the run the whole time McDermott's been here. There's been very few cases where they've been very good against the run. And once again, we're seeing the same thing this year. Now, thankfully, with this team, Adam, it tends not to matter because they score points on offense so frequently. 31, they had 31, above 30 again today in the game for the 4th one in a row. It doesn't even matter sometimes that teams can run the ball on them, keep their offense off the field because the Bills just get out there, and when they need to score, they score. So that's good, but they've got to get things shored up in this run game. There's no excuse for Alvin Kamara, who's 30 years old now, and Spencer Rattler, who is as mediocre a quarterback as there could be, to do what they did in this game against the Bills. It was kind of inexcusable.
Third down, they were better, right? 5 of 13. That had been a sore subject.
A little better.
There was some improvement there. They still have a ways to go. But if you think about it, with the overturned touchdown, right? And then you go back and the play, which, of course, Cole Bishop makes that interception or whatever. If the Saints are able to connect there on each of those, you're kind of, as my old broadcast partner in the American Hockey League, Joel Stern, used to say, you're kind of smoking in the dynamite shack, right? Yeah. Against an inferior opponent. And that's when obviously the Bills were able to seal this thing away on the sequence we mentioned at the top here in the 4th quarter. But let's talk about Bishop. That's a hell of a play for him to answer another question where there's been so many about, how ready he really was to assume that role in the safety position had been such a hot topic this year. That was massive right before the half.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was 14-10. They're going down. It looked like they were going to get a touchdown, at the very least a field goal. And then, they get the ball to start the third quarter. So, McDermott, I asked him about that too. And he said, yeah, that was a big point because that's potentially 14 points if they get touchdowns on both of those possessions. So he took points. He took all the points off the board. They would have at least gotten a field goal. And what was so great about that play, Adam, is it wasn't an ordinary play. It wasn't just, covering your guy that you were covering either in zone or man and then reacting and making the play. They fooled the Bills. I mean, Rattler was going to catch that ball if Bishop doesn't have a tremendous instinct on that play. There was nobody else over there. So if he doesn't make that play, it's a walk-in touchdown, because Olave just got rid of it as soon as he got the ball. Rattler was open. So I asked Bishop, I said, that's something you didn't see on film, obviously. And he goes, no, they didn't run that play, so we didn't know. But he realized as soon as he saw Olave get the ball, he knew exactly what was happening. And he had the athletic ability, which is the reason the Bills drafted him in the second round. They loved his athletic ability and playmaking ability. He was able to scoot over there. And then, what was the best part of the play, Adam, is he caught it. How many times have we seen Bills defensive backs drop interceptions? That was a tough catch, and he made it. So it was a huge, huge play in the game.
Yeah, it's a big one in the sense that we know about his athletic ability. As you mentioned, that's the reason the Bills drafted him where they did. Football instinct had been the question with him, right? Yeah. And I guess it says something. It's a check in the plus column, right? That he kind of read that almost perfectly, the way they executed.
I mean, last year he's not making that play. There's no way in hell he's making that play last year. He would have gotten sucked in, going the other way when his man Olave was going that way to get the pitch, and that would have been a touchdown. I don't think anybody else on the defense would have been over there if it was the same defensive call. So yeah, it was a big moment for him. It protected the lead because I was thinking, man, if they get points here, I tell you what, Adam, the opening coin toss has become a thing. Yeah, and really the Bills, I want to say, I think the Bills had won it the first 3 weeks. And I got to admit, back in the day, before these metrics started really becoming in the know, I always would say, like, for instance, they'd win the toss against Tom Brady and they would defer. And I'm like, are you friggin' kidding me? You're going to put Tom Brady on the field first and you're going to be down 7-0 5 minutes later. Now it's 100%. You defer because you can control. When you do that, there's a much better chance, probably an 80% chance, that you can control the middle of the game, the 4 minutes at the end of the half and the first 4 of the third quarter. That 8-minute segment, and there's other people that talk about this too, that 8-minute segment is really important in NFL games. And by deferring on the opening toss, you can generally have control of that situation. And that's really important in the NFL these days.
Now, how many times have we seen that? And the Bills have talked about it and executed it very well. The ability to double dip.
Yeah.
Right?
Double dipping is awesome. And in this game, they were able to prevent any dip. They kept him off in the first half, and then they got I think it was a 3-and-out to start the third quarter, if I'm not, maybe they got one first down. I can't remember, but they had to punt. So that was a great job by the Bills in that middle segment of the game.
All right, so let's get to other aspects of the defense, the pass rush. We've talked about the run defense or lack thereof. 3 sacks total, credited Daquan Jones, AJ Epinesa. Bosa winds up getting a credit as well. And I thought Bernard pressured well on the blitz. I thought that was effective for them. And Deion Walker, he had a couple of 2 or 3 really key plays in this football game. So there were some positives, I think, to talk about there.
Yeah, the pass rush I thought was in general pretty good. It's not always about sacks. It's about pressure. I thought one of the problems, though, was they got upfield a little bit too quick on a few of them, and they let Rattler get out of the pocket. And he ended up, he had a couple nice runs. I think he had 49 yards total, and those were, I think one of them was a design run, but everything else was a scramble. So they had a little bit of problem containing him, and that surprised me. I didn't think he had that type of mobility. So that's a negative, I think. But in general, and you're right, they did blitz, and that's the thing to do against a guy like Spencer Rattler. You want to blitz that guy and force him into quick decisions and hopefully some mistakes. quite frankly, he handled it pretty well, I thought.
He did.
I mean, they did get pressure on him. Bernard did get free. I think Taron Johnson got free for one and came close maybe, but didn't get him on the ground. So they did kind of do what they needed to do, but he was pretty good today. He didn't throw for a lot of yards, but I thought he was pretty good with the ball. He made some good decisions, and hey, he had them in position. They're down 2 points at Highmark Stadium in the fourth quarter. Yeah. That was not something I expected from Spencer Rattler.
In terms of the Bills and the passing game, Allen, we finally see an interception from him, looking for Keon Coleman. And he really, I mean, you could argue, really should have had two, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The second one should have been caught. Yep. And that was deep. That was deep in their territory. That was about the 25-yard line. That would have been a big play.
What happened? What was your take on? I mean, that's as effective as we've seen a defense against this Buffalo offense, I would argue, for the second quarter, right?
Yeah. The second quarter, I think I totaled it up. I think it was 13 plays and they gained 11 yards. Plus they had a turnover. They had 2 sacks and I think 2 penalties in the second quarter. It was ugly in the second quarter. Like I said, they were very fortunate to leave the field still ahead in that game after that second quarter.
You were in the post-game press conference. Was Allen asked about that, or McDermott? Did anyone shed any light strategically? And I know you get to watch the film reply a lot of the time, but any sense of kind of what went on there, how they were able to diagnose it and adjust, as we've seen this team so often do?
No, not really. I mean, I asked about that 3-play sequence. I asked McDermott. Well, I asked Allen too about that 3-play sequence where they turned it over on downs. But there wasn't any general discussion about the second quarter. I mean, Allen just said, because he was asked about, they did have some good success against them all day. Despite 31 points, the Saints did do some good things on defense. And he just basically said what he always says, that, they had a really good game plan. Well, most teams have pretty good game plans. Then you got to go out and execute it, though. And today the Saints were able to execute theirs well enough in spots to keep it a ball game. And then in the end, the Bills take care of business.
All right. And I don't think this is nitpicking at all, given that this thing could have ended up much closer than it actually was. So, but I could feel like the Sal Maiorana tremors from here in Amherst with the timeout usage.
Yeah, that was bad.
I mean, with the substitution stuff.
Yeah, and McDermott was asked about that, and he was notably pissed. Sean doesn't actually show it too often, but that he was stewing about it. They wasted how many? I think they wasted, I want to say 3 timeouts total in the game, right? I think there was 2 in the first half and 1 in the second half that were just completely wasted timeouts. And he did say too that you hate to do it. We never want to do it. And we were very fortunate that we didn't need him at the end. And he's right. They didn't need the timeouts at the end. It could have been in a different scenario against a better team. You waste timeouts like that, that's probably going to burn you. And like I said, they were lucky today. He admitted that they were fortunate it didn't matter.
All right, so as we kind of put a wrap on this post-game edition, again, it's 31-19 Bills over the New Orleans Saints today. We're live here on YouTube. Adam Benigni and Sal Maiorana. 4-0, as I said, for the first time since 2020. I mean, they look every bit the part of legitimate Super Bowl contender, right? If they stay healthy. And with all the shortcomings we've discussed, or the run defense and what we've talked about in the secondary with the safety position, we've seen some improvement there, at least against this team today. And as we've gone on, as time on task, more reps, that sort of a thing. But what they're doing offensively and the way Allen is able to execute, and the mark of a great player, I think. Great player, and we're going to talk about potentially great team here, right? You're going to get into games like, whether it was the Patriots in their heyday or the Chiefs, obviously, in their run here. I mean, any era, whatever, you can look at where there are games like this, right? How many times did, the Patriots, kind of squeak by an inferior opponent? But you know what they did, Sal? They won the game.
Yep.
Right? And I think today, as you look in a broader context of, as they're now 4 games in to the season and thinking about what's possible this year, what they haven't been able to accomplish and what they hope to, that's where I kind of classify a game like this, where you have an inferior team that's coming off an ass whooping against Seattle, where you know they're trying to get their new head coach's first win, all those things. And they have some talent. It's inferior, but they were able to exploit some things today. And the Bills still, with Allen, again, as the signature player on this, with that sequence we had talked about with his 27-yard gain on 3rd and 5, and then he hits Kincaid for the touchdown, is able to author the convincing aspect of this victory. And so to me, it falls into that category of you're going to have games like this, just win them. And they did.
That's what you said it perfectly. It's what the Patriots did for almost 2 decades. You win the games you're supposed to win, and they did that today. They were far from perfect. There was a lot of moments in this game where things were not going well for the Bills, but this is what good teams do. They find a way, no matter who they're playing, good teams or bad, but especially against bad teams, you got to find a way to win that game when you're not playing your best. The Bills have done that now. They've done that last week against Miami. That another game that they weren't. There were plenty of problems in that Miami game. They still won by 10 points. Today, they were almost behind in this game in the fourth quarter. They end up winning by 12. That's what a good team does. And, at this Colts-Rams game, late in the game that's tied, if the Colts lose that game, the Bills are the only 4-0 team in the AFC. So, it's, take care of business. And that's exactly what they've done the first 4 weeks.
Yep. And as I talk to you right now, I got the Ravens and the Chiefs on here in my home office. 30-13, Chiefs on top, end of the third quarter. Both those teams 1-2. We all know the implications and that carries as we look toward now. That's a good result for the Bills, because I was saying, you hate both of those teams, but they've already beaten the Ravens, right? So they're putting them in the rearview mirror, and they have a chance now to go beat the Chiefs in a few weeks and put them kind of in the rearview mirror. So again, we talked about this last week, the first 3 weeks, and now we're 4 weeks. It could not have gone better for the Bills. Everything in the conference is falling. The Chargers lost today to the Giants. I mean, go figure. Everything this first month of the season has been a dream sequence for the Bills. It really has. And now the now 2-2 New England Patriots, after a blowout win over Carolina, coming to Orchard Park for game number 5 on the season. Sunday Night Football on Channel 2 and NBC next week. So back to prime time, Sal. Yep. We enjoyed our 1:00 game today, although it's starting to get a little bit late now. So, Yeah, all right. That's the sign you want me to wrap this up, and I'll do Let's go. Just that. For Sal Maiorana of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, I'm Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV, Sports Talk Live, Buffalo. 31-19, Bills over the New Orleans Saints, now 4-0 with the Patriots coming to town next week. Thanks for being with us here on Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel.